afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the BEREC Public debriefing, during which we will present the outcomes of the 58th BEREC ordinary meetings. I'm Tonko Obuljen, President of the Council of HACOM and the BEREC Chair 2024. Next slide, please. So we divided this public debriefing into two parts. In the first part, we will present two reports: draft report on the entry of large content and application providers into the market for electronic communications, networks and services, and the draft report on cloud services and edge computing, followed by a Q&A session. And in the second part, we will present our opinion on Meta's draft reference offer to facilitate WhatsApp interoperability under Article 7 of the Digital Markets Act, our ongoing work on the high-level position on artificial intelligence. Also, we will discuss our early call for inputs to the BEREC Work Programme 2025 and the program of 12th BEREC Stakeholder Forum. And at the end of this session, I will give some update on some currently active topics. And of course, we'll have a second Q&A session. So please ask questions via live chat box next to the live streaming window, Slido. And we will answer those questions during the Q&A sessions. We have received questions sent by email before the event, and these questions are related more to the second Q&A session, and we will give our answers during that session. With that, I would like to pass the floor to our Digital Markets Workgroup co-chairs. So Chiara and Margarita, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon. Well, the draft BEREC report on the entry of large content and application providers into the markets for electronic communication networks and services, I will go through it a bit. Please, next slide. It gives an overview of the presence and impact of large caps on the markets for electronic communications networks and services in Europe. It presents the strategies and business models, the market dynamics, as well as the caps' relations with traditional electronic communications networks and services providers in terms of competition, cooperation, and interdependence, with several examples of these relations. It also provides 3 case studies where significant investments by large caps have been taking place in the last years: content delivery networks, submarine cables, and internet relay services, that is, services providing enhancing privacy features like tracking prevention. And it presents also some cases where electronic communications networks and services providers' ability to provide access to the network and or to some functionalities and technologies may be affected. It builds on a questionnaire sent to 9 major caps: Akamai, Amazon, Apple, Cloudflare, DAZN, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Netflix, and on 3 workshops organized with stakeholders on international submarine connectivity in the EU, cloud services, and internet relay services. Next slide, please. And what are the main takeaways of the report? Well, large caps' footprint can be represented by the points of presence. And well, through a questionnaire, we tried to collect data concerning the points of presence of the 9 major large caps within the European Economic Area. For the purpose of the report, a point of presence was defined as a physical location or facility that houses network equipment to interconnect with other networks. In this picture, you can see that both the number of caps by country and the cities, or in some cases the metropolitan areas, where caps have at least 1 POP. It is possible to conclude that these caps are present throughout all European Economic Area countries, with the only exception of Liechtenstein, and that there are 90 cities where caps have at least 1 POP. The number of cities per country in which the 9 caps have points of presence varies greatly. In some countries, the caps are only present in 1 city, for example in Belgium, while in others they are present in many cities, like in Italy. The data gathered also showed that in 60% of the countries of the European Economic Area, the caps are present in more than one city in the same country. In nearly 20% of the cities, almost all the caps have a POP, and in almost 50% of the cities, only one cap is present. This heterogeneous presence of caps in each country or city seems to indicate that, although the approach followed by each cap varies, European Economic Area countries seem indeed to represent an important part of CAP's strategy. Next slide, please. Well, on the commercial CDNs, we can say that the services market is very concentrated around few players. In effect, 2 or 3 have more than 70% of the market share of the traffic volume or of total customers, and the concentration is expected to grow significantly in the coming years. Previously, large caps relied on commercial CDNs providers for their services, but in recent years, they have been increasingly rolling out their own CDN infrastructure networks. Caps mostly use their CDNs for self-provision, but of course, they also provide partially CDN services to third parties. The rollout of CDNs by large caps, often on the internet service provider network, exerts competitive pressure on the business model of transit providers. These on-net CDNs allow internet services to reduce capacity costs by locating content closer to end users. Now I give the floor to Chiara to further present the main takeaways.
Thanks a lot, Margarita. So on the next slide, please, we will focus on submarine cables. So first of all, submarine cables, they play a key role. In 2023, they carried 99% of all international IP traffic, including, of course, the services which are provided by caps to consumers. And we observed that the ecosystem has significantly evolved in the last years. Large caps, they have become important owners and investors in transport network infrastructure. And we observed that the deployment strategies of caps and telco operators are different. Large caps that deploy submarine cables primarily for their own use and also on routes which are often already covered by other players. So they finally have a limited impact on the global network resilience. And traditional telco operators, ECN providers, they still play a key role in the transmission of data for other caps, smaller caps, which haven't deployed their own infrastructure, and also connecting areas which may not be economically profitable. So with these two first case studies, what we observe is that large caps, they insource what was formerly purchased from traditional ECN providers to a large degree, and indeed they have deployed their own physical infrastructure such as CDNs and data centers, and as well as network infrastructures like submarine cables. And by building their own large autonomous system, they relied now to a significantly less extent, or not even at all, on long-distance transit provided by ECN and ECS providers. On the next slide, then we present also the other case study that was on internet relay services. These are services, as Margarita said, used to ensure confidentiality by encrypting the data traffic directly on the user's device or in the user's domain. And it's services which are provided by some large caps, such as Apple, Google, and Microsoft. We presented these three main services, and they created quite some stir like a couple of years ago when they were first launched, because there were like some reactions, especially from telco operators, on the potential impact on their activities. So as BEREC, we wanted to look into these services, both on the impact on the operators' activities and also on traffic routing. And what we observe so far is that at this stage, the user uptake is not very significant. Still, we think that they also deserve to be monitored in the future, given, as I said, the potential impact on traffic flow, on the utilization of internet access providers' current interconnection, and also as a consequence on the decentralized approach of the internet infrastructure. Another chapter, which is more exploratory chapter, let's say, it's based on the feedbacks that we have received, such as BEREC and as NRAs, we received from stakeholders over the last years. And what we have received as feedback is that some OS operating system providers, sometimes they can restrict the telco operator's ability to correctly give access to services or to the network itself. Some examples that we mentioned in the report, of course, the list is not exhaustive. It's access to 5G slicing functionality, so that restrictions to the provision of the slices, the potential implications of the provider-specific solutions for standardized services like RCS, rich communication services, as well as some difficulties that some MVNOs and smaller mobile operators seem to face in setting up the functionalities of the devices and in configuring the network profile when eSIMs are used. So these are some exploratory topics that we are analyzing in the report. And as we mentioned, it's based on a questionnaire, this report, and as BEREC, we insist that in order to carry out also evidence and fact-based analysis, we really rely on the data which are provided by the stakeholders. So we thank a lot of the stakeholders who contributed to the report by filling out the questionnaire. And we, as BEREC, really value this kind of feedback. So please make sure that you provide this data, which are very useful for carrying out a proper analysis. On the next slide, please. It's about the future work. So what we identify is that the increasing investment of CAPs in data centers in Europe and their impact on the provision of ECS and ECNs would be very interesting also to analyze in the future. Submarine cables, we would like to keep working on this as it is also a key topic at the European level. The issues that we mentioned on MVNOs association, so we would like to look more into this exploratory chapter that we have provided by this report, and then also the impact of large digital platforms on business communication services. And also business services, something that BEREC has been exploring a lot in the last couple of years. On the next slide, it is about the next steps, let's say. So the public consultation was open today, and we welcome your feedback by 28th of April. And then the final report should be adopted in mid-October. So this is all from our side. So I give the floor to Maria and Dola, co-chairs of the Planning and Future Trends Working Group.
Thank you very much, Chiara, Margarida. Good afternoon, everyone. We are presenting today a report on cloud and edge computing services for public consultation as well. Next slide, please. We have two main objectives in mind for this report. First of all, gaining a better understanding of the growing interplay, synergies, and convergent trends between telecommunications and cloud that may imply significant changes for the sector, as it has been also acknowledged by the white paper. And also we had in mind the Data Act enforcement, because this regulation identifies telco NRAs as well placed to enforce switching and interoperability obligation on data processing services. So to do this work, we made an extensive desk research, including an external study that was published last December by BEREC, and also some very solid market analysis carried out by other regulators such as ACM, Ofcom, and French National Competition Authority. And we also had quite a good number of interviews with the stakeholders, and we are also very grateful for the cooperation for this work that has been very, very useful. Next slide, please. So this is the main lines of the report. We start by the basics, taking a stock of the legal definitions, the characteristics, interrelation and differentiation between cloud, edge, and data processing services. We also gather the classifications of cloud services, the different stacks, and also the different types of deployments, public, private, hybrid clouds. We also make a particular mention to the definition of multi-cloud, as this is particularly relevant in the context of the Data Act. We follow with the challenges that might hinder the development of the services in the EU, such as investment efforts needed, competition concerns, sustainability, interoperability, and among others. We also acknowledge that there have been quite a good number of European initiatives aiming to address these challenges: the Digital Decade Policy Programme, the Data Strategy, the Data Act, the Digital Markets Act, and many others, all aiming for Europe to have a cloud environment that is interconnected, interoperable, trusted, sustainable, and cloud-to-edge enabled. With regard to the cloud markets characteristics, we take stock of the conclusions of the three very recent and comprehensive market studies that I mentioned at the beginning. The three of them are very aligned and point to similar competition concerns. They identify economies of scale, ecosystem and network effects, switching and interoperability barriers, barriers also to entry and expansion. All these leading to market concentration and raising competition concerns. Some of these competition concerns can be addressed by facilitating interoperability, standardization, and switching. So we also describe the barriers and problems encountered in this regard and provide some example of the diverse public and private initiative to facilitate interoperability, as well as the recent EU regulation, and in particular the Data Act. We follow with describing the interplay with electronic communications. We describe the general developments on competition and comparison dynamics. On one hand, we see how electronic communications networks and services providers are moving towards the cloud by means of the network virtualization that will also allow them to provide new services based on network as a service solutions. And also maybe with a more forward-looking perspective, they may also see how telecommunications providers may play a role in the deployment of edge computing thanks to the capillarity of the networks. On the other hand, we also see how cloud providers are also moving towards the electronic communications networks and services. They are investing significantly on networks. Maybe at the beginning was primarily for self-provision, but this is in some cases also being put available for third parties. And we are also started seeing some cases of direct provision of electronic communications networks and services, like, for instance, by providing private network solutions, including digital services, connectivity, and cloud in tailored offers. Nevertheless, for the time being, we see that they are cooperating and that partnerships are rich. This is because cloud providers benefit from the connectivity of the electronic communications providers, and also they benefit from the commercial links that telcos have with a large number of users. And on the other hand, for the telecom providers, these partnerships allow them to provide advanced services to the customers, and also to make this update of their network towards cloudification. We develop further on these areas in the report on how they interplay and what is the state of the migration of the different electronic communications network elements to the cloud. We follow with some very general regulatory considerations and with a forward-looking approach, as we are aware that some of these services, such as network as a service or edge computer, are set at an early stage. But we point to the possible need to adapt the code definitions to adapt to service convergence so that legal certainty is still ensured. We also have some thoughts regarding to the changes in the market dynamics and how these developments may impact electronic communication services markets. There may be new dependencies emerging from the telcos on hyperscalers, or there may be also some dependencies on the cloud markets towards the electronic communications networks, thanks to the capillarity when they move towards the edge. We also share some thoughts about the partnerships. The general approach is that those partnerships are positive, but we may have to pay attention that they do not create barriers to entry and reinforce their current respective market position, or and in particular when there are exclusive agreements. We also have some ideas about the need to have a broad perspective, taking into consideration the digital markets ecosystem effects, so that we can understand the whole impact of these developments and the risk, for instance, of leveraging market power into adjacent markets, and also the synergies among technologies that could be affected by the control of some cloud facilities when they need when they are necessary to develop other solutions, for instance, based on artificial intelligence, IoT, and 5G. We also acknowledge the importance of APIs and openness and how those need to be exposed to ensure interoperability, and about lock-in and discrimination and any potential impact on net neutrality or cybersecurity. We address as well the need of investments to enable cloud-based networks as well as the future edge computer. We take into account the interplay of the growing EU digital legislation and how the institutional setup is built in Europe. So underlining the need to have a cooperation among all the relevant competent bodies to ensure that there is a coherent implementation of these rules and avoid any unnecessary red tape. And finally, we also take into account rules on priorities with regard to European digital sovereignty, sustainability, and the impact of the digital divide. Finally, we point to a number of possible future trends that we may see in the midterm. We foresee that the cloud market will continue growing, that this growth will increase the relevance of multi-cloud and switching solutions. We will expect also to continue to see these partnerships between different players in the sector to provide the services. And also to move to have more and more initiatives to enable the cloud to edge continuum, that it may also entail some a network transformation to allow this cloud to edge continuum. Finally, we also point to the role that we expect that the hyperscalers will continue to have in the future, in taking into account how the current status of the cloud markets. Next slide, please. So we have published the document today for public consultation until the 24th of April. We know there are a lot of issues there, so we have provided for an extended deadline. We look forward any input and information that may be helpful to finalize our work. To any of the parts of the report, but we also put forward 7 questions of specific issues that we thought are particularly relevant to clarify. We aim to have the final approval in October this year, and we are also organizing a workshop together also with the digital markets working groups, where we will have the opportunity to explain with a little bit more detail the report. And this is all from my side. I will give you back to you, Tonko.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. And with that, I would like to open the first session of questions and answers. But it seems that so far there are no questions. I will wait just for a few seconds. Well, if any question come, we can address it during our second Q&A session anyway. So with that, I would now like to move to the second part of our public debriefing, and I would like to pass floor to Chiara and Margarida again. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I would like first to set the context. And so it is important to refer that on 6 September 2023, the European Commission designated 6 gatekeepers and 22 core platform services under the Digital Markets Act. MET has been designated in relation to, among others, its number in the interdependent interpersonal communication services, WhatsApp and Messenger. Meta was therefore required to provide interoperability with these services pursuant to Article 7 of the DMA until 7 of March 2024. And according to Recital 64 of the DMA, the designated gatekeeper should publish a reference offer laying down the technical details and general terms and conditions of interoperability with its NICs, and the European Commission can consult BEREC in order to determine whether the technical details and the general terms and conditions published in the reference offer that the gatekeeper intends to implement or has implemented ensures compliance with this obligation. So, on the 29th January 2024, the European Commission formally requested BEREC to produce an opinion on MET's draft reference offer for WhatsApp interoperability under Article 7 of DMA. And on 15 February 2024, BEREC opinion was submitted to the European Commission. Now, BEREC is currently reviewing META's final reference offer, which was published on 7 March, and comparing, of course, with the opinion that submitted. Now I'll give the floor to Chiara to present how we organized the BEREC opinion.
Thanks a lot. On the next slide. Yes, thanks. So on the report on interoperability of NICs, which was published already in June 2023, what we did is to present a list of minimum criteria for the gatekeeper's reference offer under the DMA. So we wanted to work on this topic for the implementation of the DMA in advance. So last year we already started to work on this. And what do we do this time is we build on the reference offer, the list of minimum criteria for the reference offer. We build on this to prepare our opinion on the draft reference offer for Meta's interoperability. So our remarks are, first of all, some general remarks on the fact that the reference offer should be assessed as regards its potential to reach the objectives of the DMA, which is of reducing barriers to entry for alternative NICs operators, NICs providers, and allow for market contestability, which is one of the main objectives of the DMA. And we also thought that the dialogue with the potential interoperability seekers of the reference offer is very important. And we also worked on this. We cooperated with the European Commission by contributing to some technical workshops that they organized also together with the gatekeepers and the potential interoperability seekers. The other points that we develop are more technical. First of all, we say that all the details which are concerning the description of the service and the specification of the relevant basic functionalities or the features and facilities, all this should be integrated, of course, in the reference offer for the interoperability seekers to make sure that their service can be interconnected. It is also important to, from the end user side, that reachability and discoverability and all the rules concerning opt-in or opt-out from the service are also clearly stated in the reference offer. And as BEREC, we recommend that the user can be discoverable, should consent to the fact of being discoverable. The user location and the consequences in case of roaming should also be explicitly detailed in the reference offer. So what happens if European users, they are out of the European Union, for instance? So what are the consequences for the service? On the next slide. And another point is the public availability. In the telecom sector, the reference offers, they are publicly available. They can be consulted also by the potential interested parties. And we think that this is an very important point, that the complete reference offer must be publicly available on the website of the gatekeepers and also on the potentially on the European Commission's website, so that the potential interoperability seekers, they are aware of the interoperability details and to assess whether they would like to benefit from this or not. Another important point is the SLA, so the service level agreements, and we recommend that they are clearly stated in the reference offer in an accurate way, and they may be based on service level objectives if, let's say, some more official objectives are not, service level objectives if some official objectives are not available. It's the same for the KPIs, so key performance indicators. They are very useful to have some transparent measure for the performance of the specific objectives, and we think that it should be clearly stated also in the reference offer and also in the compliance report that the gatekeepers has to provide under the DMA. We also have some details in the BEREC opinion on data security, data protection, security requirements, and also on the rules of on dynamic adjustments, because of course it's key for the for all involved actors to be notified and actively notified well in advance with a specific time frame of any adjustment that can be introduced in the service which is made interoperable. On the next slide. We also have we also make some comments on Meta's draft reference offer concerning the term, suspension and termination. And here we specify that it has to be exclusively limited to legal and technical reasons, any suspension of the service. We also have some references to the identification and on the rules on dispute resolution between providers. We think that this is an important point because dispute resolution mechanisms are very commonly used in electronic communication markets. So it is a key mechanism and a key regulatory tool. Which is not foreseen in the DMA. It does not include a similar mechanism, but we develop in the opinion also on how this could be introduced, how the DMA and also the reference offer can build on this sectoral experience to propose a kind of dispute resolution mechanism to make sure that the implementation of the interoperability works fine. And then finally, on the updating mechanism of the reference offers we mentioned before, it should be introduced and aligned also with other updates, for instance, on dynamic adjustments, as I mentioned before. The opinion is not public yet, but it will be published very soon. So if you're interested in reading the BEREC opinion more carefully, then don't hesitate to follow the website or on the social networks so that you will be informed about this. And then we move on, I give the floor back to Margherita because we move on our high-level position on artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Chiara. Next slide, please. I'd like first to set the scene to highlight that on 9 January 2024, the European Commission launched 2 calls for contributions on competition in generative artificial intelligence and virtual worlds. And of course, BEREC decided to reply with a high-level position addressing artificial intelligence and virtual worlds with a holistic perspective, building on its broader expertise. BEREC high-level position on AI will be published on Friday, 15 March. Now, Chiara will give you information on the content of the BEREC high-level position.
Yes, so on this as well, we wanted to build on BEREC's experience and especially on BEREC's broader approach. So what we wanted to do is not to only focus on the competition aspects, but also to open to other aspects which are very important and where BEREC has expertise in, which is internet openness and also the environmental footprint and then cybersecurity as well. So first of all, you will see here as the publication, the position will be only available in a couple of days, but you can see here at least the structure. So first of all, we give a short presentation of the value chains, and then we make the link and see how, let's say the interaction between artificial intelligence, virtual worlds, and ECNs and ECS. And this we do it in 2 ways. So first of all, it's how the artificial intelligence and the virtual worlds, how they work. So they need a good ECN and ECS to thrive. So for instance, very high capacity networks with low latency, cloud and edge computing. And then we also see the references to the report that BEREC has already published on artificial intelligence in ECS and ECNs. Then there are three main chapters, let's say. So the first one is on the competition dynamics. Here we wanted to show at the same time the reliance of AI and virtual worlds on four essential inputs, which is computing power and also related cloud services, data, financial resources, and technical expertise. And these, they are giving structural competitive advantages to the providers. Plus, on top of these structural competitive advantages, we also analyze the potential, so the ability and the potential incentive of some major actors to engage also in anti-competitive behavior. Another chapter is focusing on openness and end users empowerment. So openness, it means the potential of AI to shape the way users access content online. So it is in the same spirit, let's say, of the open internet regulation, but of course it is not clearly, I mean, we are not saying that the open internet regulation should apply to these services, but just keeping the principle and the spirit, let's say, of this regulation in mind. And then we say that while AI and especially AI can be beneficial in some cases, we have to keep in mind also the potential of these technologies in affecting also the freedom of choice of end users. And we propose a list of potential solutions, let's say, for also end users empowerment that we think will be really crucial in this case. Then on the environmental footprint and sustainability, this is something that BEREC has been working a lot on in the last years for the telco sector and the digital environment. But now we wanted to integrate also an analysis on artificial intelligence based services. They can enable some future some more, let's say, sustainable solution, but still they have to be themselves sustainable to contribute to the green transition. So this is also a key point of really the environmental footprint of the AI itself. And finally, we also highlight some risks which are related to cybersecurity. And there are, of course, some current legislations like the DMA, the DSA, the Data Act, and Artificial Intelligence Act. They can address some of the issues that we have identified, but not all of them. Sometimes they will need probably some adaptations over the years. And as BEREC, we will keep contributing, of course, with the relevant institutions and to tackle these new challenges. So now I give the floor to Robert for the Work Programme 2025.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Maurik. I'm the chair of Comreg in Ireland, and I'm also the incoming chair of BEREC for 2025. And as incoming chair, it is my job to prepare the BEREC Work Programme for next year, and also to organize the BEREC Stakeholder Forum. And I want to give you some information of where we stand on both. So next slide, please. The exercise to develop the BEREC Work Programme is more complicated than you would think. It always starts with an outline work programme, which is basically a bare bones work programme of existing tasks that we always do, and that is sent to the European institutions to get their feedback. That outline work programme was adopted back in January and sent to the Commission, the Parliament, and the Council, and we're awaiting their feedback. But in parallel now, we're going to start the real work of defining a work programme. And what we have done is we've launched a call for inputs to all our stakeholders. This was launched on our website and via social media back on the 1st of March. And the window for submitting proposals remains open until Tuesday the 9th. So I would encourage everyone who is interested in submitting suggestions, and we definitely would like to hear from you, to do so by the 9th of April. Once all the proposals have been collated and evaluated, including the ones, of course, from our member organizations, we will present them to our colleagues in BEREC and discuss the prioritization and of all the competing projects. We will then present the outcome of our deliberations to the plenary in the autumn, and we will then go into public consultation in the autumn. By December of this year, we hope to adopt the final work programme. We will, of course, carefully consider all the responses that we get, internally and external suggestions, and it is our hope that we should have a balanced work programme by the end of the year. Next slide, please. Our work programme is based first and foremost on the and shaped by the regulatory obligations that we have, and they stem from the communications code, the open internet regulation, the roaming regulation, which also incorporates intra-EU communications, and that's relatively recent, the Digital Markets Act. So we don't start from a blank slate, a blank piece of paper. We have quite a lot of projects that are already, let's say, going into the work programme because they are mandatory projects. There are recurring projects and carryover projects. Let me explain. There are quite a lot of mandatory projects that come out of the code. For example, Article 45 of the code says that there is a peer review of spectrum awards. Article 75 of the code requires BEREC to monitor termination rates, etc. So there is a chunk of the workload that we as BEREC do comes out of those mandatory projects. On top of that, there are recurring projects that we as BEREC choose to do because it benefits the stakeholders. It is work that we think contributes to the well-functioning of the market. Think, for example, the annual WACC parameters calculations and the regulatory accounting in practice report. They are recurring projects, although they're not stipulated by law. On top of that then, because we have a multi-annual work programme, there are projects that have been started in 2023 that carry over to 2024 and will be finalised then, or start in 2024 and finalised in 2025. So all of this means, and I want to highlight this, is that the available capacity for BEREC to do work is limited, and a big chunk of that is taken up by those mandatory, recurring and carryover projects. But there is still a good amount of capacity left, and for that we're asking your input, and you should be able to tell us what you think should be included. Can I have the next slide, please? Great. So having regard to the projects that BEREC considers to be included, we take guidance from our strategic priorities. And they are that we have to promote full connectivity, that we support sustainable and open digital markets, and that we empower end users. So projects that we pick have to fit those three strategic objectives. And part of that empty bucket, let's say the remaining capacity, you should also think about the fact that we can already foresee some of the projects that are going to take up time. We don't know what will come out of the white paper, but it's very likely, for example, that some of the projects will come from that bucket. So if you want to contribute and make suggestions, and can I have the next bit, please do so. but keep in mind that that there's a certain format to do this. This is by giving us the title of your proposal, what kind of high-level strategic priority it fits in, a short description of the project, which will then allow us to adequately consider the merits of the suggestion, the preferred format of the BEREC output. For example, is it a report, a workshop, a guideline, etc.? And then, of course, your name of the organization or the individual who is proposing this. So this is what I have to say about the work program. All in all, as I said, I have given you a bit of a view of what the timeline is. But one last thing, and that ties in, that's a nice segue into the next topic about the stakeholder forum. When your organization has booked a slot to talk to one of our co-chairs at the stakeholder forum, that is also another opportunity for you to repeat and make known the suggestions that you have made. So that's the work program for 2025. And now then to the stakeholder forum, which is, as you will now well know, an important event on the BEREC calendar. And this year it will take place on Tuesday, the 26th of March in Brussels. And as per usual, it starts with a meet and greet session in the morning, where you will be able to book a slot and meet the co-chairs of the working groups in BEREC. We have two kind of main slots, one before the coffee break and one after the coffee break, in order to talk to them. After the lunch, we will have also per usual a number of sessions. We will start this year at 1:45. We want to get as much out of the time that we have as possible. We will start at 1:45, and we will recap, first of all, Tonko and myself, the outline work program that we adopted in January, and we will both be in the room to answer any questions with regard to the work program. After this, we are very honored to have Roberto Viola from the European Commission to give us a keynote address, and he will speak about the Commission's recent policy initiative, the white paper. And then after that, we will have a panel discussion about elements of the white paper. Participants in that panel discussion will be Camilla Klok from the European Commission, our own Professor Marcellos, president of the Greek regulator, former chair of BEREC, a representative from SER, Richard Feasy, somebody from, let's say, a challenger operator, in this case, the Iliad Group, Ingrid Malfait, and somebody from a more incumbent, with an incumbent mindset, Telefonica in this case, Carlos Rodriguez Cocina. So this is very much a discussion, and we've given it plenty of time, an hour, to tease out some of the issues around the white paper. We will then have a coffee break, and we will go to the second panel. Next slide, please. The second panel, which is about a slightly newer topic. It's about network security and resilience. And we have found the chair of the Ukrainian regulator available, Alexander Shivotovsky, to come and present to us some of the issues that they've run into in Ukraine. And I think that is a nice backdrop then to have a panel discussion, and he will take part in that. But we also have Sheila Becker from Luxembourg, who is responsible in the Luxembourg regulator for all things that have to do with the NIS1 directive. Ian Levy, an engineer from Amazon. Kate Lebunets, an assistant professor from the University of Utrecht, who will give an interesting insight about empirical methods to solve problems in the intersection of cybersecurity and human factors, which should be an interesting angle to look at. And finally, we have an operator voice from a representative from Elisa in Finland, Jaakko Elenius. And then after some closing remarks, you will have ample time then in a reception to talk with all the BEREC people and to further talk about some of the issues that are dear to your heart. So that is the plan for the stakeholder forum, and I hope that you will be able to come. We have already well over 200 registered in-person participants, and on top of that, a number of people that will participate online. But details of the stakeholder forum, if you wish to still participate but haven't registered yet, you can find that on the BEREC website and on various social media platforms. We have a very active social media campaign, but just go to the website if you still want to register. And that's it. Thank you very much. And I'll hand back to Tonko.
Thank you very much, Robert. And now we have a few updates from our side. Next slide, please. So here are some other recent documents that we adopted and that can be found on our web page, and I will not go into the details. You can check, and if you have some additional questions, you can send to us. Next slide, please. So probably the hottest topic of these days, the white paper by the European Commission on how to master Europe's digital infrastructure needs, which has been published on 21st of February this year. So the document covers several topics, and it's ranging from industrial policy tools to promote a digital ecosystem, to demand-side needs, and also specific regulatory issues concerning very high capacity, both fixed and mobile networks. And definitely some matters of key relevance to all our members and to BEREC were raised in the white paper. Just to mention the appropriate scope of the framework and reach of the objectives of the framework, the possible new authorization regime for networks and services with a focus on the core networks, efficient spectrum regulation and tools to manage the spectrum, possible or announced simplification of ex-ante regulation, introduction of pan-EU designed remedies with a view to foster a digital single market. And of course, there's the increasing importance of cybersecurity and the environmental impact of the digital infrastructures and services, which were also addressed in the document. So BEREC will contribute to the public consultation. It is open for a long time this time, so we are glad that it is like that. And we will provide a detailed analysis of the proposals at stake. And we also plan to engage once when this is translated into some specific legislative initiatives. Our analysis, of course, will be developed in the light of our mission, and that is to foster independent, consistent, and high-quality regulation to the benefit of Europe and to the benefit of European citizens. At the beginning of this month, we went for a BEREC study trip. Our aim, well, for all of our study trips, is to exchange ideas on global trends in technology and changing business models, and to foster greater cooperation between EU, and in this case, between EU and South America in the area of digital regulation. So BEREC mini board visited Brazil. We had very interesting meetings there with a number of relevant stakeholders, including the NRA, two different ministries, because telecom and digital is divided into two different ministries in Brazil, with meetings with providers of electronic communications, networks and services. We visited a research center, one manufacturer, and we also had a visit to the Brazilian Internet Exchange. And we will publish our detailed report on this study visit in June this year. We were welcomed with a lot of enthusiasm, and there was a lot of interest also from their side to learn more about EU digital policies, especially on artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and the digital markets, which is something which is relevant on the both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, obviously. Next slide, please. Before moving to the Q&A session 2, I would like to remind you one more time on the public consultations which were mentioned earlier. So early call for input to the BEREC Work Programme is open for your proposals until the 9th of April this year. And 2 reports which were presented in the first part of today's debriefing are open for public consultation until 24th of April this year. Next slide, please. So with that, we can move to the second Q&A session. And I would like in the beginning to address the 2 questions that we received previously in advance. So the first one is from Mr. Louis Colson, Bouygues Telecom. How BEREC will organize its participation to the public debate around the DNA? What will BEREC concretely do to support its analysis? Well, we plan to organize our participation as an ad hoc item in our work program, and the leading role will be by our regulatory framework work group, but all of our co-chairs will be involved, and these which presented today will also be involved in drafting our contribution to the public consultation. And well, for the second part of the question, it is maybe more related to the substance than to the process itself. But we will have our usual approach. So we will analyze in depth Commission findings and the proposals. And of course, in the light of all data that are at our disposal at the moment, we will prepare this contribution, having also in mind our previous work on different topics. I hope this is an answer to your question. Now, the second question is for Mr. Ruben Tiru, El Mobi Mobile BV. Why is EU mobile data price regulated, but national data price is not regulated? Because NL MNO KPN currently invoices higher than the roam like at home rate in the Netherlands national roaming partner. Well, this question is really more for a national regulator than to BEREC. In principle, national mobile markets are not regulated anymore in the EU, in most of the member states. However, if three criteria test shows that regulation is needed, market may be regulated if needed. But anyway, I would advise you to address this question to the national regulator, ACM. And now we have the first question received today from Mr. Dean Bubley. Compared to predictions from 5 to 6 years ago, edge computing seems less important than expected, especially for mobile applications. Has BEREC refocused on fixed network and on device edge? And has it looked at interconnected edge rather than edge nodes embedded in a single operator's network? So, Maria, would you like to address this question?
Yes, thank you, Tonko, and thank you very much, Dean, for the question. Our impression is that indeed edge computing is still at a very early stage. It seems also common that every time that there is a technological innovation, there is at the beginning a lot of, let's say, hype about it, and then everything is silent, and then the technology comes into the market. So we will see about it. For the time being, our impression is that the use cases still need to be developed, and now there's a lot of new ideas and discussions about future services related to extended reality, artificial intelligence, virtual worlds. Well, edge computing could certainly have a role and be very, very basic to develop those services. But and we see that those are not actually in the market, and how we see it is that these that's the deployments will have to adapt to the use cases that are still to be seen. So we will in this case wait and see, but of course, if you can share any insights or information in this regard, it will be very interesting also for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. We have another question from Mr. Marceau Brigand. Hello, thank you for this presentation. When will be organized the planned workshop about the usage of satellite technologies in mobile communications, as planned in the work program 2024 for Q2 2024? Thank you for your response, Marceau Brigand, Eutelsat Group. I think we still don't have the exact date, and we will have the date after the stakeholder forum or at the stakeholder forum. So, any other question? From Mr. Yves Blondel. Should I read it? Yes. Could you please identify who was the person asking the question on wholesale mobile? Access seems like a technical question. Okay. I mean, it was Mr. Ruben Tiru. I already read it, so it's fine. And it seems at the moment that we don't have any more questions. Should we go back to presentation, to the last slide, Ilse, please? So I would just like to mention our upcoming events. So tomorrow we will have our workshop on digital networks developments, which has been already announced today. Then on 26th of March, our 12th BEREC Stakeholder Forum. And I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot of you there. On 9th of April, we will have our workshop on end user rights, which will be hybrid in Brussels and online. And on 11th of April 2024, workshop on ex-ante regulatory experience concerning commitments, wholesale-only undertakings, and commercial agreements review, also in Brussels and hybrid. Next slide, please. So no, next slide. We have come to an end. Thank you very much for joining us today. Have a nice rest of the day, and goodbye. Next BEREC public debriefing will take place on 12th of June 2024 after our second plenary of the year. Thank you.